My husband was ashamed of me. He plotted to end my life with my cousin. But karma hit hard. They pushed me into the sea, but I didn't die. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, grab a warm cup of tea and get comfortable. I'd love to know what time of day you're watching this video. Please comment M for morning, A for afternoon, or E for evening. Now, let me take you into this story. The first splash of icy water hit my face like a physical slap, stealing the breath from my lungs before I even fully understood what was happening. I clawed desperately at the yacht's polished railing, my fingernails scraping against the cold metal, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It wasn't just fear. It was sheer, unadulterated disbelief. Dale's hands, the hands I had held for 30 years, the hands I had placed a gold band on, were shoving me. They were hard, cold, and unforgiving. I looked up, gasping, searching for his eyes, searching for the husband who had toasted to our new beginning just an hour ago with a glass of expensive champagne. But the man staring back at me wasn't Dale. His eyes were devoid of mercy. They were empty holes where his soul used to be. "Goodbye, Lorraine," a female voice sneered from beside him. It was Shelby. My cousin. The girl I had taken in when she was a teenager. The girl I had fed, clothed, and treated like the daughter I never had. She was standing there, her arm linked through Dale's, a smirk twisting her beautiful face into something demonic. Her voice dripped with triumph, poison, and a terrifying greed. "It's time for you to disappear, old woman," Shelby hissed. "I'm done waiting for my inheritance." My scream pierced the salty air of the Pacific Northwest, a raw sound of betrayal that was immediately swallowed by the roar of the dark waves below. The last thing I saw before the ocean claimed me was the smug satisfaction on their faces. They looked relieved. They looked like they had just taken out the trash. As I fell, time seemed to stretch. I thought about the dinner we had just shared. I thought about the trust one had placed in them. And then, the water hit me. But before I tell you how I fought the ocean, before I tell you about the cold that almost stopped my heart, I need to take you back. You need to understand how a woman like me, a woman who built a business empire from nothing, a woman who thought she was smart, ended up being pushed off her own boat by the two people she loved most in the world. Thank you so much for joining me today. It means the world to have you here listening to my story. I see so many of you tuning in, and I would love to know where you are joining from. Please, drop your city or state in the comments below. Seeing your locations makes me feel like we are all sitting in my living room together, sharing a cup of tea. Now, let me tell you how this nightmare truly began. It didn't start on the boat. It started months ago, in a ballroom filled with crystal chandeliers and fake smiles. It was the evening of the Emerald City Charity Gala in Seattle. The air inside the Grand Hyatt was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the murmur of the city's elite. I was wearing an emerald green gown that I felt beautiful in, a rare moment of vanity for me. I had just been named Businesswoman of the Year for the success of my furniture chain, Lorraine's Living. I stood in the center of the room, holding a heavy glass award, surrounded by people who wanted to shake my hand. "Lorraine, you truly are the heart of Seattle's design world," a woman in pearls gushed, leaning in close. "Your new store in Bellevue is already outperforming projections. You must be thrilled." I smiled, a genuine, grateful smile. "It has been a busy season, but I have an incredible team. I'm just grateful for the support." Beside me stood Dale. My husband. He was wearing a tuxedo I had bought him, a watch I had gifted him, and a scowl he was trying very hard to hide. "And Dale," the woman continued, turning her gaze to him. "You must be so proud to be Mr. Lorraine Blake tonight. It takes a strong man to stand behind such a powerful woman." The air around us seemed to freeze. I felt Dale's arm stiffen under my hand. He forced a smile, the kind that shows teeth but no warmth. "Of course," he muttered, taking a large gulp of his whiskey. "Very proud." But I knew that tone. It was the tone of a man who felt small. Inside his head, I knew exactly what he was thinking. They don't see me. They never do. To them, I am just Lorraine's husband. I am nothing more than an accessory, like her purse or her shoes. I squeezed his arm gently, trying to offer silent reassurance, trying to share the spotlight. I couldn't do it without him, I said to the group, my voice soft. Dale is my rock. Dale pulled his arm away, pretending to reach for a waiter passing with a tray of drinks. I need another drink, he said, turning his back on me. I watched him walk away toward the bar, his shoulders hunched in that familiar defensive posture. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. I told myself it was just the stress of the event. I told myself he was just tired. I told myself he loved me. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. That night, as I accepted applause and accolades, my husband wasn't celebrating with me. He was already beginning to hate me. And hate, once it takes root in a weak man's heart, grows faster than any weed. The ride home from the gala was suffocatingly silent. The rain of the Pacific Northwest was drumming a relentless rhythm on the roof of our Mercedes, matching the pounding of my headache. I sat in the passenger seat, glancing over at Dale. His knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might shatter. You are quiet tonight, I said softly, trying to bridge the gap between us. The streetlights flickered over his face, illuminating the deep lines of resentment etched around his mouth. What was there to say? He snapped, not taking his eyes off the wet road. It was the Lorraine show. Starring Lorraine. Directed by Lorraine. Produced by Lorraine. I sighed, turning to look out the window at the blurred city lights. Dale, it was an award for the company. It's our livelihood. It pays for this car, for the house, for our vacations. Right, he laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. It pays for everything. Which is why everyone looks at me like I'm your charity case. Mr. Lorraine Blake. Did you hear that, woman? I felt like a gelding on display. I corrected her, I said, my voice firming up a little. I told them I couldn't do it without you. Yeah, and that just made it worse, he muttered. Patronizing. That's what it was. You patted me on the head like a good little dog. I didn't know how to respond to that. We had been married for 30 years. Dale had tried several business ventures in his 40s, a restaurant that folded in a year, a consulting firm that never got a single client, a tech startup that went nowhere. I had bailed him out every single time. I had paid his debts using the profits from my furniture stores. I never threw it in his face. I never called him a failure. I simply worked harder to cover our losses. I reached across the console to touch his hand, but he pulled away before I could make contact, shifting gears unnecessarily. We are partners, Dale, I whispered. Partners split things 50-50, Lorraine, he said coldly. We aren't partners. You are the CEO, and I am the trophy husband who's aging out of his prime. The cruelty in his voice stung tears into my eyes. I turned away, pressing my forehead against the cool glass of the window. I thought about the early days. Dale used to be charming. He used to be full of big dreams and laughter. When I started my first small shop selling refurbished chairs, he was the one who painted the walls. He was the one who cheered me on. But as the business grew into an empire, as Lorraine's living became a household name in the state, Dale shrank. He didn't grow with me. He withered in my shadow. When we pulled into the driveway of our estate in Bellevue, the house looked beautiful, lit up by the landscape lighting I had carefully designed. It was a symbol of everything we had achieved. But to Dale, it was a prison. He slammed the car door and walked into the house without waiting for me. I stood in the rain for a moment, letting the cold drops mix with the hot tears on my cheeks. I felt a profound sense of loneliness. I entered the house and found him in the study, pouring a glass of scotch. He didn't look up. I'm going to bed, I said, my voice trembling. He didn't answer. He just stared at the amber liquid in his glass. I walked up the grand staircase alone. I remember looking at the family photos on the wall. Photos of us in Hawaii, photos of us at Christmas. And photos of Shelby, my cousin. She was in so many of them, smiling between us like the daughter we never had. I stopped at a picture taken last Thanksgiving. Shelby was hugging Dale, laughing at something he said. I had taken the picture. I remembered thinking how happy I was that my family was close. I thought it was sweet how well they got along. If only I had looked closer at that photo. If only I had noticed the way Shelby's hand lingered on Dale's shoulder. If only I had seen the way Dale was looking at her, not like an uncle or a cousin-in-law, but like a man starving for attention. I went to our bedroom, took off my emerald gown, and hung it in the closet. I felt heavy. The success I had worked so hard for felt like a burden tonight. Little did I know, downstairs, Dale wasn't just drinking. He was texting. And the person he was texting was the very person I trusted to manage my flagship store. The person I had saved from poverty. My phone buzzed on the nightstand with a message from Shelby, saw the photos from the gala. You looked amazing, Auntie Lorraine. So proud of you. I typed back, thank you, honey. Get some rest. Big day at the store tomorrow. I put the phone down, feeling a warmth in my chest. At least I had Shelby. At least I had family who appreciated me. What a fool I was. I was sleeping in a house with a man who despised me and texting a woman who wanted my life. And I had no idea that the wheels were already turning to take it all away from me. To understand why Shelby's betrayal cut deeper than any knife, you have to understand where she came from. You have to understand what I did for her. 13 years ago, my aunt, my mother's younger sister, passed away. It wasn't a peaceful passing. It was the end of a long, ugly battle with addiction that left behind nothing but debt and a terrified, skinny 15-year-old girl named Shelby. I didn't hesitate. Not for a second. I drove straight to that trailer park in Oregon, packed Shelby's few belongings into my car, and brought her home to Bellevue. I didn't treat her like a poor relation. I treated her like my own flesh and blood. I paid for a private high school. I paid for braces to fix her smile. I set up a college fund so she would never have to worry about tuition. When she cried about not having a mom, I held her. When she failed her driving test, I took her out for practice every Sunday until she passed. I remember her 18th birthday clearly. It was the first time I saw the cracks, though I chose to ignore them. We threw her a party in the backyard. I had bought her a brand new Honda Civic. It was a sensible, safe, reliable car, perfect for a college student. I put a big red bow on it. When I led her outside to see it, I expected squeals of joy. I expected a hug. Instead, Shelby stopped dead in her tracks. Her face fell. She looked at the Honda, then turned to look at my Porsche Cayenne parked in the garage. Oh, she said, her voice flat. It's a Civic. I smiled, trying to keep the mood light. It's brand new, honey. Great gas mileage, top safety rating. It will get you back and forth to campus perfectly. Shelby crossed her arms, a petulant look taking over her features. I thought. I mean, since you are getting a new model next year, I thought you might give me the Porsche. All the girls at my school drive BMWs or Rovers. A Civic is for maids. I was stunned. Shelby, this is a gift. A generous one. Most kids work years to buy a car like this. She rolled her eyes. Whatever. Thanks, I guess. She took the keys without looking at me and walked away to show her friends. I stood there, feeling a cold prickle on my neck. I brushed it off. I told myself she was just a teenager, influenced by the spoiled kids at her private school. I told myself she was still grieving deep down. I made excuses for her because I loved her. After college, which she barely finished, despite my hiring tutors, she couldn't hold down a job. She said bosses were mean. She said the work was boring. So, I brought her into the family business. I made her a manager at the downtown store. I gave her a salary she hadn't earned and a title she wasn't qualified for. I thought if I gave her responsibility, she would grow into it. Instead, she grew entitled. She started dressing like me. She bought the same perfume. She started making comments about my age. "You look tired, Lorraine," she would say in front of staff. "Maybe you should go home and rest. I can handle the meeting." One afternoon, about 3 months before the gala, I stopped by the store unannounced. Shelby was behind the counter, flipping through a magazine. She didn't see me walk in. She was on the phone, her back to the door. "I know, right?" she was saying, laughing loudly. "She acts like she's the Queen of England. God, she's so controlling. She gave me a lecture about the inventory counts yesterday. Like, chill out, you old hag. You have millions, hire someone to count the damn chairs." I froze. My heart hammered in my chest. She was talking about me. "Yeah," Shelby continued. "I just need to hang in there until she retires or, kicks the bucket. Then this whole place will be mine anyway. I'm the only family she has." I should have fired her right then. I should have walked up to that counter, snatched the phone out of her hand, and thrown her out on the street. But I didn't. I was paralyzed by hurt. And then, fear set in. Fear of being alone. Fear of admitting that my charity had been wasted on a snake. I quietly backed out of the store, my hands shaking. I drove home and cried in my car. Later that night, when I saw her, I didn't say a word. I just asked her if everything was okay at the store. "Oh, it's great, Auntie," she beamed, her face the picture of innocence. "I love working there. You've built such an amazing legacy. I'm so honored to be part of it." She hugged me, and I smelled my own perfume on her. It made me nauseous. But even then, I didn't realize the full extent of her ambition. I thought she was just an ungrateful brat waiting for an inheritance. I didn't know she wasn't willing to wait. I didn't know she had set her sights on something else that belonged to me. My husband. Shelby had realized something crucial. She couldn't take the business from me while I was alive and competent. But if she aligned herself with Dale, the weak, insecure link in my armor, she could double her chances. She played to his vanity. She fed his starving ego. And while I was busy running an empire and trying to keep the peace, she was busy seducing the man I shared my bed with. She wasn't just a snake in the grass, she was a viper in my own living room. The affair didn't start with passion. It started with complaints. It started with two miserable people finding common ground in their resentment of me. I had given Dale the management of our new Northgate branch. It was a token position, really. I knew he wasn't great with operations, but I wanted him to feel useful. I wanted him to feel like a boss. Shelby, conveniently, volunteered to help him get the store set up. "He needs support, Auntie," she told me, blinking those big, innocent eyes. "I know the systems better than anyone. I can help him transition." I thanked her. I actually thanked her. It began in the back office of the Northgate store. I know this now because I later found the texts, the digital trail of their betrayal. It started on a Tuesday afternoon. The store was slow. Dale was frustrated with the inventory software. He was cursing at the computer, feeling incompetent, a feeling he hated. Shelby walked in. She didn't offer to fix it for him, which would have made him feel stupid. Instead, she leaned against the desk, crossing her legs, and sighed. "This system is garbage," she said. "Lorraine is too cheap to upgrade to the user-friendly version. She just wants to make everyone's life harder. Dale looked up, surprised. You think so? I know so, Shelby said, moving closer. She micromanages everything. She doesn't trust anyone. Especially not you. Which is insane, because you're the one with the vision. That was the hook. She called him a visionary. No one had called Dale a visionary in 20 years. She thinks I'm useless, Dale muttered, leaning back in his chair. Shelby walked around the desk and placed a hand on his shoulder. She's intimidated by you, Dale. That's the truth. She knows that if you actually had control, you'd outshine her. She keeps you down on purpose. Dale looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see his wife's little cousin. He saw a young, beautiful woman who looked at him like he was a king. You really think I could run this? He asked, his voice low. I think you could run the whole empire, Shelby whispered, her fingers trailing down his arm. Better than she does. You just need the right partner. Someone who believes in you. That afternoon, they didn't do any work. They sat in that office for 3 hours, drinking wine from the stash meant for clients, tearing me apart. Every complaint Dale had, Shelby validated. Every insecurity he felt, she soothed. The physical affairs started a week later. But the emotional alliance was sealed that day. They created a shared fantasy where I was the villain, the oppressor, the tyrant keeping them from their true potential. It wasn't long before Shelby started planting darker seeds. Imagine what we could do with the assets, she said one evening as they lay in bed at a cheap motel, paid for with cash from the register. If Lorraine wasn't in the picture. What do you mean? Dale asked, though he knew. I mean, look at the life she lives, Shelby said, tracing circles on his chest. The house, the cars, the respect. That should be yours. You put up with her for 30 years. You earned it. And I'm the only one who really knows how to spend it. We could travel. We could buy a villa in Italy. No more inventory counts. No more begging her for money. Dale hesitated. She handles the money. I don't even have access to the main accounts. But you're her husband, Shelby grinned. And if you were her widower, you would have access to everything. The word hung in the air. Widower. Dale didn't pull away. He didn't scold her. He let the idea settle in his mind. He let it take root. The resentment he felt for me had morphed into something toxic. He began to see me not as a person, but as an obstacle. An obstacle standing between him and a second youth with a beautiful woman. They became bold. They started stealing more than just time. Shelby encouraged him to take cash. It's your money anyway, she argued. Why should you have to ask for an allowance like a child? Take what you need. So he did. He started skimming from the deposits. Small amounts at first, then larger. It funded their dinners, their hotel rooms, her jewelry. I was busy preparing for the spring launch, completely oblivious. I was working 14-hour days, trying to secure our future, while my husband and my cousin were plotting to steal it. One night, I came home late, exhausted. Dale was sitting on the couch, smiling at his phone. He looked up, and for a second, he looked happy. Good news? I asked, dropping my keys on the table. He quickly locked the screen. Just a funny video. It wasn't a video. It was a text from Shelby. It read, I found out about the insurance policy. The payout is huge. We need to talk. He looked at me, and his smile vanished. Dinner is cold, he said flatly. You're late again. I'm sorry, I said, walking over to kiss his cheek. He flinched. I'm going to bed, he said, standing up and leaving me alone in the kitchen. I stood there, looking at the cold food, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. The man I loved was becoming a stranger. And the monster he was becoming was hungry. I have always prided myself on being a sharp businesswoman. I built Lorraine's living on attention to detail. I knew the cost of a single screw, the margin on every velvet sofa. I could spot a discrepancy in a spreadsheet from across the room. But love makes you blind. Or maybe not blind, just willfully ignorant. It started with the petty cash at the Northgate store. A few $100s here, a missing deposit there. When I first noticed it during my monthly audit, I frowned. I called Shelby. Shelby, the cash drop from last Friday is short $500. Do you know what happened? Her voice on the phone was casual, unbothered. Oh, that? Dale took it. He said he needed to pay a vendor in cash because the card machine was down. Or maybe it was for a client lunch. I don't remember exactly, but he signed for it. Dale. My stomach twisted. Why would Dale need $500 cash for a vendor? We had corporate credit cards for that. That night, I asked him about it. I tried to be gentle. Dale, honey, I noticed a withdrawal from the store cash. Shelby said you took it? Dale was watching TV. He didn't look away from the screen. Yeah. So what? I needed to buy supplies for the break room and treat the staff to pizza. Morale was low. Is that a crime? No, of course not, I said, treading carefully. But we have a process for expenses. You have the Amex card. Taking cash messes up the bookkeeping. He snapped the TV off and turned to me, his face flushing red. Oh my God, Lorraine. Are you serious? It's $500. I own the damn store, don't I? Or do I have to ask your permission to buy pepperoni pizza? It's not about permission, it's about accounting. It's about control, he shouted, standing up. You just can't stand that I made a decision without you. You treat me like an employee. Actually, worse. You treat me like a thief. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I sat there, stunned. I felt guilty. I thought, maybe he's right. Maybe I am too controlling. He's just trying to be a good boss. I let it go. That was my mistake. I let it go. A month later, it was worse. I found a transfer of $5,000 from the joint savings account, the one we kept for emergency house repairs, to an account I didn't recognize. This time, I didn't ask Shelby. I called the bank. They told me the transfer was authorized by Dale. I waited for him to come home. I sat at the kitchen table with the bank statement in front of me. When he walked in, smelling of expensive cologne and wine, I pushed the paper toward him. Where did this money go, Dale? I asked, my voice steady but shaking underneath. He glanced at the paper and shrugged. Investment. What investment? A crypto thing. A friend told me about it. It's going to double in a month. Crypto? I stared at him. Dale, you don't know anything about cryptocurrency. And we agreed to discuss any investment over $1,000. He laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. See? This is why I didn't tell you. You have no vision. You're stuck in the past selling sofas while the world is moving on. I'm trying to build something for us, and all you do is interrogate me. I'm not interrogating you, I'm worried. That was our rainy day fund. Stop being so dramatic, he yelled. You make millions. 5,000 is pennies to you. Why are you so greedy? Do you want to keep every cent for yourself? He turned the tables on me so fast I got whiplash. Suddenly, I was the greedy one. I was the villain hoarding wealth while he was the misunderstood visionary. This is what they call gaslighting, and Dale had become a master at it. Shelby played her part perfectly. The next day, she came over for dinner. When Dale went to the bathroom, she leaned in, her voice hushed. "Auntie, don't be too hard on him," she whispered. "He's really trying to prove himself to you. He feels so bad that he doesn't contribute as much as you. He just wants to make you proud with this investment. If you crush him now, it might break him." I looked at her, feeling a surge of affection. She was defending him. She was trying to keep our marriage together. "I know, Shelby," I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I just worry." "Trust him," she said, squeezing my hand. "He loves you so much." Lies. Layers and layers of lies. I didn't know that the crypto investment was actually a deposit on a luxury vacation rental they were planning for after I was gone. I didn't know that the pizza money was for a diamond bracelet that was currently sitting on Shelby's wrist, hidden under her long sleeve. I hired a forensic accountant secretly, just to be safe. Not because I suspected an affair or murder, but because I thought Dale was falling for scams. I wanted to protect him. If I had known what the accountant would find later, I would have packed my bags that night. But I stayed. I stayed because I honored my vows. For better or for worse. I didn't realize that worse meant my husband was researching how to cut brake lines on the internet. Violence doesn't always start with a blow. Sometimes, it starts with a pair of pliers in a dark garage. The tension in the house had become unbearable. Dale was oscillating between explosive anger and cold silence. Shelby was coming over more often, ostensibly to mediate, but in reality, to fuel the fire. One evening, Shelby came to the house in tears. She sat on our sofa, wringing her hands. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked, rushing to get her a tissue. I'm in trouble, Auntie," she sobbed. "I have some medical bills. A scare. I might need surgery." "Oh my God," I gasped. "Of course, we'll help." "How much?" She named a figure. $10,000. I hesitated. "Shelby, I can write a check directly to the hospital. Or put you on my insurance." She froze. "No. I mean, it's a private specialist. He needs cash up front. Please, Auntie. I'm scared." I looked at her. Something felt off. Her eyes were darting around. But Dale stepped in. "Just give her the money, Lorraine," he barked. "God, your own cousin is sick and you're haggling? You are heartless." I wrote the check. I wrote it to Shelby. That money wasn't for surgery. It was a test. They wanted to see how easily they could get a large sum out of me. And they needed liquid cash for their escape plan. 2 days later, Shelby called Dale. I didn't hear the call, but I learned about it later. "She's taking too long to die," Shelby had hissed into the phone. "I can't keep playing the poor relative. And I think I'm pregnant." It was a lie. Another manipulation to push Dale over the edge. But it worked. The thought of a child, a legacy, with Shelby, coupled with the promise of my millions, snapped the last thread of Dale's conscience. "We need to do it now," Dale had replied. "Before she changes her will." That Tuesday, I had a trip planned to Portland to visit a supplier. It was a 3-hour drive on winding coastal roads. Dangerous roads, especially in the rain. Dale was surprisingly helpful the night before. "You should get an early start," he said, pouring me tea. "Take the Mercedes. It handles the wet roads better than the SUV." "That's a good idea," I said, touched by his concern. At 3 a.m., while I was asleep, Dale crept down to the garage. He slid under my Mercedes with a pair of wire cutters. He located the brake lines. With sweaty hands and a pounding heart, he nicked them. He didn't cut them completely, that would be too obvious. He weakened them enough that they would snap under hard pressure. Like when I would be braking around a sharp curve on the highway. The next morning, I woke up with a shooting pain in my lower back. I could barely stand up. My sciatica was flaring up badly. I hobbled downstairs. Dale was drinking coffee in the kitchen, looking pale and jittery. "You're up," he said, his voice tight. "Ready to go?" "I can't drive," I winced, clutching the counter. "My back is killing me. I can't sit in that driver's seat for 3 hours." Dale's eyes widened. "What?" "You have to go. The meeting is important." "I know. I'm going to call a car service. Or an Uber." "No," he shouted, too loud. "I mean, why waste the money? The Mercedes is right there. The heated seats will help your back." "Dale, I can't press the pedals without pain. I'm calling a driver." I pulled out my phone and booked a black car. Panic flashed across Dale's face. If I didn't drive the car, someone else might. Or worse, the mechanic would find the cut lines during the next service. "Fine," he stammered. I'll take the Mercedes in for a wash today. You take the Uber." I left in the hired car, oblivious to the fact that I had just cheated death. As my driver navigated the rainy highway, my phone buzzed. It was Shelby. "Did you leave yet?" she asked. "Yes, I'm in a car service. My back is acting up." There was a long silence on the other end. A silence that felt heavy. "Oh," she said finally, her voice sounding strained. "That's lucky for you. Safe travels, Auntie." Back at the house, Dale was frantically trying to figure out how to repair the damage he had done before anyone noticed. He had failed. But failure didn't stop them. It only made them desperate. They realized they couldn't leave it to chance or mechanical failure. They needed to do it themselves. They needed a place with no witnesses, no cameras, and no escape. They needed the ocean. After the failed car accident, Dale changed. The explosive anger vanished, replaced by a strange, hollow calmness. He became attentive again. He started bringing me flowers. He asked about my day. I was relieved. I thought the rough patch was over. I thought maybe he had realized how much he loved me. I was so desperate for my marriage to work that I ignored the coldness in his eyes when he thought I wasn't looking. One Friday evening, he came home with a brochure for a weekend getaway. "Lorraine," he said, taking my hands. "I've been a jerk lately. I know that. I've been stressed about the business, feeling inadequate. I took it out on you. I'm sorry." Tears welled in my eyes. "Oh, Dale. I just want us to be happy." "Me too," he said, smiling. "That's why I want to take the yacht out this weekend. Just the two of us. We can sail up toward the San Juan Islands. Anchor somewhere quiet. Watch the sunset. Drink champagne. Remember why we fell in love." It sounded perfect. A dream. "But," he added, scratching his neck, "I know you want to relax. You don't want to be cooking and cleaning the galley. So, I asked Shelby to come along." My smile faltered slightly. "Shelby? On our romantic getaway?" "Just as help," he reassured me quickly. She offered. "She said she wants to make it up to you for asking for that money. She'll stay in the crew cabin. She'll cook, serve drinks, clean up. We won't even know she's there. She just wants to serve us. Let her do this, Lorraine. It will make her feel better." It was a masterstroke of manipulation. He used my own kindness against me. Okay, I agreed. That's very sweet of her. The morning we left, the sky was a bruised purple, heavy with clouds. The yacht, the Lady Lorraine, was bobbing in the harbor. Before we boarded, Dale pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase. "Oh, one last thing," he said casually. "The lawyer sent these over. Just some tax updates for the joint accounts and the power of attorney renewal. We need to sign them before the quarter ends." I glanced at them. It looked like standard legalese. I trusted him. I trusted my husband. I uncapped my pen and signed. I signed over access to the main accounts. I signed a document that gave him full control of my medical decisions if I was incapacitated. I signed my own death warrant on the hood of his car in the marina parking lot. Dale took the papers, and for a split second, I saw a flash of hunger in his eyes. But he blinked, and it was gone. "Ready to go, darling?" he asked. We boarded the yacht. Shelby was already there, arranging a fruit platter. She was wearing a white sundress, looking fresh and eager. "Welcome aboard, Captain and Mrs. Blake," she chirped. She hugged me, her body stiff. "I promise, this is going to be a trip to remember." We set sail. The city skyline faded behind us. The water turned from gray to a deep, ominous black as we got further from shore. Dale poured champagne. We stood on the deck, the wind whipping my hair. "To us," he said, clinking his glass against mine. "To us," I echoed. I didn't know that us meant him and Shelby. I didn't know that below deck, they had already prepared a story for the police. She slipped. It was an accident. The deck was wet. We tried to save her. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in blood-red streaks, I felt a chill. "I'm going to get a shawl from the cabin," I said. "Take your time," Dale said, turning to look at the horizon. He didn't look at me. I walked down the stairs. I heard giggling. I heard whispers. I stopped. And that's when I opened the door to the pilot house and saw them. And the world as I knew it ended. The water was a shock so profound it felt like burning. The Pacific Ocean in late autumn isn't just cold, it's a living, hostile entity. It slammed into me, forcing the air from my lungs, filling my nose and mouth with the taste of salt and terror. I sank. The weight of my clothes, the shock of the fall, the sheer disbelief, it all pulled me down into the dark. For a moment, I wanted to let go. It would be so easy. Just breathe in the water. Let the cold numb the pain in my heart. My husband wanted me dead. My cousin, my daughter in all but blood, wanted me dead. Why fight? What was there to go back to? I saw the hull of the yacht above me, a dark shape against the dying light of the surface. I saw the propellers churning the water, turning the boat around. They were leaving. They weren't even checking to see if I surfaced. They were running away to spend my money. That thought sparked a fire in my chest that was hotter than the freezing water. No. The word screamed in my mind. They don't get to win. They don't get to drink my champagne and sleep in my bed and laugh about how easy it was to kill me. I kicked. My legs, heavy with wet denim, thrashed against the current. I clawed my way up, my lungs burning, screaming for oxygen. I broke the surface, gasping, coughing up seawater. "Dale!" I screamed, a reflex. "Help!" But the yacht was already 100 yards away, its stern lights shrinking into the distance. The roar of the engines faded, replaced by the crushing silence of the open sea. I was alone. Alone in the middle of the ocean, miles from shore, in water that could kill a person in 20 minutes. I treaded water, panic rising like bile. I needed to float. I needed to conserve energy. I kicked off my shoes. They sank into the abyss. I struggled out of my heavy jacket, watching it drift away. Look for something. Anything. The yacht had turned sharply. Sometimes, things fall off. I scanned the dark waves, bobbing up and down, swallowing salt spray. And then, I saw it. A white shape, barely visible in the gloom. A fender. One of those large, white rubber bumpers used to protect the boat's hull when docking. It must have come loose when they shoved off, or maybe when they turned. I swam toward it. My arms felt like lead. My teeth were chattering so hard my jaw ached. Just a little further. Just reach it. I grabbed the rubber loop at the end of the fender and hugged it to my chest. It wasn't a life jacket, but it was buoyant enough to keep my head above water without me having to kick constantly. I clung to that piece of rubber like it was the hand of God. Night fell completely. The sky was a vast, indifferent void. The stars looked down, cold and distant. The cold began to seep into my bones. Hypothermia. I knew the signs. Confusion. Sleepiness. The urge to just close your eyes and drift away. I started talking to myself to stay awake. My name is Lorraine Blake. I own Lorraine's living. I have a meeting on Monday. I have to fire Shelby. I have to divorce Dale. I have to destroy them. That thought became my mantra. Every time my eyes fluttered shut, every time my grip on the fender loosened, I pictured their faces. I pictured Shelby's smirk. I pictured Dale's cold eyes. I used my hatred as fuel. It was a dirty, black fuel, but it burned. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time loses meaning when you are dying. My body went numb. I couldn't feel my legs anymore. My hands were locked onto the rope in a rigor mortis-like grip. I was hallucinating. I heard my mother calling me. I saw the warm lights of my kitchen. Sleep, Lorraine. Just sleep. No, I croaked, my voice a broken whisper. And then, I saw it. A light. Not a star. It was rhythmic. Sweep, darkness. Sweep, darkness. A lighthouse. Or a beacon. It was far away, but it was there. It meant land. It meant rocks. It meant a chance. I tried to kick, but my legs wouldn't obey. I was just a piece of driftwood now, at the mercy of the current. But the current seemed to be pushing me, yes, it was pushing me toward the light. I drifted. The sound of the ocean changed. It wasn't just the deep swell anymore. It was the sound of crashing. Waves hitting stone. Terror spiked again. If I was thrown against rocks in this state, I would be crushed. The roar grew louder. I saw the white foam of breakers in the moonlight. Please, I whispered to the universe. Don't let me die now. A wave lifted me up, high into the air. I held my breath. It hurled me forward. I tumbled, rolling through the surf, scraping against gravel and barnacles. Something hard hit my shoulder. Ground. Solid ground. I tried to crawl, but my body had shut down. I lay there, half in the water, half on the jagged rocks, as the tide pulled at my legs, trying to drag me back. I couldn't move. I was going to wash back out. Then, through the haze of unconsciousness, I heard a sound. Not the wind. Not the waves. The crunch of boots on gravel. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, blinding me. "Hey!" a gruff voice shouted. "Over here. There's a body." Strong hands grabbed my jacket. I was hauled up, dragged away from the water's edge. "I've got you," the voice said. It was rough, masculine, and real. "You're alive. Hold on." I tried to speak, tried to say my name, but only a whimper came out. The last thing I felt was the warmth of a rough wool blanket being wrapped around me before the darkness finally took me. But this time, it wasn't the darkness of death. It was the darkness of safety. And as I slipped away, one thought remained, clear and sharp as a diamond. I am alive. And you too are going to regret the day you were born. The first thing I realized was the smell. It wasn't the sterile, chemical smell of a hospital, and it wasn't the lavender-infused air of my own bedroom. It was wood smoke, old wool, and drying sage. I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids felt like they were glued shut. My body was a map of pain. Every inch of skin felt bruised, scraped, or frozen. I groaned, a low, guttural sound that didn't sound like me at all. Easy now, a voice rumbled. It was deep, gravelly, like stones grinding together in a riverbed. You've been out for 2 days. Don't try to move. I forced my eyes open. The room was dim, lit only by the orange glow of a cast-iron wood stove in the corner. I was lying on a cot, buried under layers of heavy quilts. A man was sitting in a rocking chair nearby, whittling a piece of wood. He stopped when he saw me looking. He was older, maybe in his 60s, with a beard that was more salt than pepper and eyes that were sharp, blue, and unreadable. He looked like a man who had seen the worst of the world and decided to stop participating in it. Water, I croaked. He stood up, he was tall, with a slight limp, and brought me a tin cup. He supported my head while I drank. The water was cool and tasted of iron. Where am I? I whispered. Cape Disappointment, he said. My name is Garrett. I fish off the rocks near the old lighthouse. Found you washed up like a piece of kelp. Memory crashed into me like a tidal wave. The yacht. The sunset. Shelby's smirk. Dale's hands. Goodbye, Lorraine. I started to shake. Not from cold, but from a terror so fresh it felt like I was falling all over again. I curled into a ball, sobbing dry, hacking sobs that hurt my chest. Garrett didn't shush me. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just sat back down and let me cry. He waited until the storm passed. The police, I gasped finally. I need the police. Garrett leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I can drive you into town. It's about 40 minutes. But I gotta ask you something first. He looked at me intently. You were screaming in your sleep, he said quietly. You were screaming names. Dale. Shelby. You were begging them not to do it. I froze. Most people who fall off boats just scream for help, Garrett continued. They don't beg their husbands for mercy. I looked at this stranger, this man who had saved my life, and I saw no judgment in his eyes, only a hard curiosity. It wasn't an accident, I whispered. They pushed me. Garrett nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something he already knew about human nature. If I take you to the cops now, looking like this, with no proof, what's the story going to be? Rich lady falls off boat, hits head, gets confused, blames loving husband. He was right. I knew he was right. Dale and Shelby would have had days to cook up a story. They would have scrubbed the boat. They would be playing the grieving survivors perfectly. If I showed up now, hysterical and battered, Dale would paint me as mentally unstable. He would say I jumped. He would say I had dementia. He had my power of attorney. He could have me committed. They think I'm dead, I said, the realization settling over me like a cold shroud. Probably, Garrett said. Ocean usually keeps what it takes. I can't go back yet, I said, my voice gaining a shred of strength. I need to know what they're doing. I need to know if they're cashing in. Garrett studied me for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to a small table. He picked up an old iPad with a cracked screen. I don't have much out here, he said. But I have internet. You want to see what the world thinks happened to Lorraine Blake? He handed me the tablet. My hands shook as I typed my name into the search bar. The headlines hit me harder than the rocks had. Search called off for Bellevue CEO. Tragedy at sea, furniture mogul presumed dead. Husband devastated, she was the love of my life. There was a photo of Dale. He was standing on the dock, looking disheveled, wiping a tear from his eye. Shelby was next to him, holding his arm, looking downcast. They were acting. And they were good at it. I need to stay here, I said, looking up at Garrett. Just for a few days. Please. I have money. I can pay you. Garrett scoffed, taking the tablet back. I don't want your money. You can stay because I don't like bullies. And whoever did this to you, they're worse than bullies. He tossed another log into the fire. Rest, he commanded. You can't fight a war when you can't even stand up. I lay back, watching the flames dance on the ceiling. I was alive. I was hidden. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the nice, accommodating Lorraine. I was a ghost. And ghosts are excellent at haunting. For days later, I sat in Garrett's cabin, wrapped in a flannel shirt that was 3 sizes too big, watching my own funeral. It was being live-streamed by a local news station. Dale had spared no expense. He held it at the St. James Cathedral, a place I hadn't visited in years, but it was grand enough for the show he wanted to put on. The pews were packed. I saw my employees, my suppliers, people I had mentored. They were crying real tears. It broke my heart to see them grieving for me when I was sitting right there, alive, eating canned soup. Then, Dale walked up to the podium. He looked impeccable in a black suit. He looked thinner, as if grief had eaten away at him. It was a nice touch. Lorraine was more than a wife, he choked out, pausing to compose himself. The camera zoomed in on his trembling hands. She was my compass. My North Star. Without her, I am lost in the dark. I threw a piece of bread at the screen. Liar! I screamed. You're not lost. You're calculating. Garrett, who was mending a net in the corner, didn't look up, but I saw his jaw tighten. Then, Shelby stepped up to read a poem. She walked with a practiced fragility. But it wasn't her walking that made my blood run cold. It was what she was wearing. Around her neck, resting against her modest black dress, was a triple-strand pearl necklace with a vintage diamond clasp. I gasped, the air leaving my lungs so fast I got dizzy. That little thief, I hissed. What is it? Garrett asked, looking over. The pearls, I pointed a shaking finger at the screen. That necklace belonged to my grandmother. She wore it in the 1920s. My mother wore it at her wedding. I told Shelby. I specifically told her that necklace was never to be touched. It was in my safe. My locked safe. Shelby touched the pearls as she spoke, caressing them possessively. Auntie Lorraine taught me everything about elegance, Shelby said, her voice wobbling. I will wear these close to my heart to keep her spirit alive. It was a violation. It was worse than them stealing my money. They were stealing my identity, my history. She was wearing my family heirloom while standing over my empty grave. I'm going to kill her, I whispered. I am going to strangle her with those pearls. Dale returned to the microphone for the closing remarks. In honor of Lorraine, he said, I will be taking over as CEO of Lorraine's Living effective immediately. It is what she would have wanted. We will continue her legacy. And, he added, looking directly into the camera, we will be establishing the Lorraine Blake Memorial Fund. Please, in lieu of flowers, donate generously. The family needs privacy to heal during this transition. Translation: give us more money, and don't ask questions while we liquidate the assets. I turned off the tablet. I couldn't watch anymore. I felt sick, physically violently ill. They're moving fast, Garrett said. Taking over the company. The safe. That means they have your codes. Dale knew the safe combination, I said, rubbing my face. I trusted him with everything. I was so stupid. Not stupid, Garrett corrected. Loyal. There's a difference. He stood up and walked over to a loose floorboard. He pried it up and pulled out a small metal box. Inside was a stack of cash and an old, heavy pistol. I'm not saying we use this, he said, placing the gun on the table. But you need to know I have it. Because people who kill for money don't stop killing until they get caught. I looked at the gun, then at Garrett. I don't want to shoot them, Garrett. That's too easy. They tried to erase me. I want to erase them. I want to strip them of every dollar, every ounce of reputation, every friend they have. I want them to stand in front of a judge and know that I beat them. Good, Garrett nodded. So, what's the first step? Information, I said, my eyes narrowing. Dale is lazy. He reuses passwords. And he never logs out of the cloud. I looked at the cracked iPad. Garrett, I need to borrow this again. I'm going to hack my own husband. The rain was hammering against the roof of the cabin, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding of my heart. I sat at Garrett's small wooden table, the glow of the iPad illuminating my face. I wasn't a hacker. But I was a wife. And I was a business owner who had set up all of our family devices. I navigated to the cloud login page. I typed in Dale's email address. Then, the password. I tried the usual, Seahawks12. Incorrect. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. Then I thought about his ego. I typed in, Visionary One. Access granted. My breath hitched. I was in. Everything was there. His photos, his notes, his messages. It was a digital window into the soul of the man who had tried to murder me. I went straight to the messages. I scrolled past the condolences from friends, the so sorry for your loss texts that he hadn't even bothered to reply to. I was looking for one name. Shelby. The thread was long. It went back months. I started reading, and with every line, a piece of my heart withered and died. July 14th, the old hag is lecturing me about inventory again. God, I can't wait until this is all ours. Shelby, July 14th, just hold on, baby. Once I get access to the accounts, we'll take that trip to Italy. Dale. August 2nd, did you get the pills? Make sure she takes them before bed. It makes her groggy. Shelby, August 2nd, done. She thinks they're vitamins. Dale. My hand flew to my mouth. The fatigue. The brain fog I had felt all summer. I hadn't been working too hard. They had been drugging me. Keeping me compliant. I scrolled to the week of the murder. October 28th, the car thing didn't work. We need a plan B, something permanent. Shelby, October 28th, the yacht. Next weekend. No witnesses. Just the deep blue sea. Dale. Tears blurred my vision, but I forced myself to keep reading. I needed screenshots. I needed proof. I screenshotted everything, sending the files to a secure, secret email account I had just created. Then, I saw something strange. A message from 2 days ago. After I was supposedly dead. November 3rd, transfer complete. $50,000 sent to R. Please confirm receipt. Dale. R? Who is R? I switched to his banking app. He had saved the password in the browser. Lazy. So incredibly lazy. I looked at the transaction history. There it was. A wire transfer of $50,000 to an account under the name Rusty Miller. I frowned. I didn't know a Rusty Miller. Was it a gambling debt? A drug dealer? I searched the name in Dale's contacts. There was a number. I put the number into a reverse lookup site. It traced back to a prepaid burner phone, but the location pinged to a trailer park in the Marina District. Garrett, I called out. He was outside chopping wood. He came in, wiping rain from his face. What did you find? Dale paid someone $50,000 the day after the accident, I said. A guy named Rusty. Garrett's face darkened. Rusty Miller? The guy who hangs around the docks with a drone? You know him? I know of him, Garrett grunted. He's a bottom feeder. Steals crab pots. Peeps into boat windows. If Dale is paying him, it's not for charity. Blackmail, I realized, the word tasting like ash. Rusty saw something. Or he has something, Garrett said. Rusty flies that drone of his everywhere. He thinks he's a filmmaker. My mind raced. A drone. If Rusty had a drone up that evening, if he was filming the sunset. He might have it on video, I whispered. Garrett, if he has a video of them pushing me. Then that's your smoking gun, Garrett finished. But if Rusty is blackmailing them, he's dangerous. And if Dale and Shelby are paying him, they're desperate. They won't keep paying him, I said, knowing Dale's cheapness and Shelby's ruthlessness. Shelby won't let a loose end live. We need to get to Rusty before they do, Garrett said, grabbing his coat. No, I said, a plan forming in my mind. A cold, calculated plan. Let them meet. Let the rats turn on each other. If Rusty is squeezing them, they'll panic. And panicked people make mistakes. I looked back at the iPad. I sent a text from Dale's phone to Shelby. I deleted it immediately after sending it so Dale wouldn't see it on his phone, but Shelby would receive it. Rusty wants more. Meet me at the warehouse tonight. We need to fix this. I sat back. I was playing a dangerous game. But I wasn't the pawn anymore. I was the player. Meanwhile, in the luxury condo that Dale and I had bought as an investment property, where Shelby had now conveniently moved in to grieve, panic was setting in. Shelby was pacing the living room, her heels clicking aggressively on the hardwood floors. She was wearing my silk robe. Dale was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a week. He called again, Dale said, his voice trembling. Rusty. He says the 50 grand was just a down payment. He wants $1 million. Cash. Or the video goes to the police. $1 million? Shelby screeched. We don't have $1 million in liquid cash yet. The insurance hasn't paid out, and probate takes months. I told him that. Dale yelled back. He doesn't care. He sent me a clip, Shelby. A 5-second clip. Dale held up his phone. On the screen, grainy but unmistakable, was the footage from above. The yacht. 3 figures on the deck. 2 of them shoving the third one over the rail. Shelby stared at it, her face pale. For the first time, the reality of what they had done pierced through her arrogance. It wasn't just a secret between lovers anymore. It was digital proof. We can't pay him, Shelby said, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly calm register. If we pay him $1 million, he'll come back for 2. Then 5. He'll bleed us dry for the rest of our lives. So what do we do? Dale asked, panic rising in his chest. If we don't pay, we go to prison for life, Shelby. Murder 1. Shelby walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights. Her reflection in the glass was beautiful and twisted. We don't pay him, she repeated. We silence him. Dale stared at her. Silence him? You mean, kill him? He's a junkie fisherman, Dale. Who's going to miss him? Shelby turned around, her eyes blazing. We've already done the hard part. We got rid of Lorraine. Are you going to let some dirty little peeping Tom ruin our future? I can't do it again, Dale stammered. I can't. Pushing Lorraine. I still see her face. Oh, grow a spine. Shelby snapped. You didn't see her face, you were too busy looking at my ass. Stop pretending you have a conscience. She grabbed her car keys. Text him. Tell him we have the money. Tell him to meet us at the old cannery docks at midnight. It's deserted. Shelby. Do it, she screamed. Or I walk. And if I walk, I take the baby with me. The baby. The ultimate trump card. Dale fumbled with his phone, his fingers shaking. He texted Rusty. We have the money. Midnight. Old cannery dock. Come alone. Rusty replied instantly, smart choice. Shelby smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She went to the closet and pulled out a dark hoodie. She picked up a heavy flashlight. You drive the Lexus, she ordered. I'll take the truck. The truck has a bull bar. Dale looked at the truck keys in her hand. He realized then that he wasn't in charge. He had never been in charge. He had traded a wife who managed him for a mistress who mastered him. What if it goes wrong? He whispered. It won't, Shelby said, checking her reflection in the mirror. Karma is on our side, babe. We're the winners. She was wrong. Karma wasn't on their side. Karma was sitting in a cabin 40 miles away, watching their digital footprints and waiting for the moment to strike. The old cannery dock was a desolate stretch of concrete and rotting wood, jutting out into the black water. Fog swirled around the rusted pilings, obscuring the moon. It was the perfect place for a murder. Dale stood by the Lexus, clutching a gym bag filled with cut-up newspaper and a layer of real bills on top. He was sweating despite the cold. Every creak of the dock made him jump. Shelby was parked 50 yards back, hidden in the shadows of a warehouse, behind the wheel of Dale's Ford Raptor truck. The engine was idling, lights off. She was watching Dale like a hawk. At 11:58 p.m., a figure emerged from the fog. Rusty Miller looked exactly like what he was, a man who lived hard. He wore a greasy beanie and an oversized jacket. He walked with a swagger that masked his nervousness. Mr. Blake, Rusty grinned, revealing yellow teeth. Nice night for a transaction. Do you have it? Dale asked, his voice cracking. The memory card? Rusty tapped his chest pocket. Right here. Safe and sound. Do you have my retirement fund? Dale held up the bag. It's all here. 1 million. Rusty stepped closer, reaching for the bag. Let me see. Card first, Dale said, trying to sound tough. Rusty laughed. You're in no position to negotiate, killer. Give me the bag. Rusty grabbed the bag and unzipped it. He saw the stack of hundreds on top. He grinned. But then he dug deeper. His fingers touched the newspaper. His face changed instantly. You think I'm stupid? He snarled, dropping the bag. He reached into his pocket, not for the card, but for a knife. Dale stumbled back, terrified. No, wait. I can get the rest. Rusty lunged. Suddenly, high beams blinded them both. The roar of a V8 engine shattered the silence. Shelby floored the gas. The massive truck surged forward like a beast released from a cage. Rusty looked up, his eyes widening in horror. He dove to the left just as the truck slammed into the spot where he had been standing. Crunch. The truck hit the Lexus, spinning it around, and smashed into a pile of old crates. Rusty wasn't hit directly, but the side mirror clipped his shoulder with a sickening thud. He went flying, landing hard on the gravel, rolling down the embankment toward the tree line. Shelby slammed on the brakes and threw the truck into reverse, the tires screeching. She was aiming for him again. Rusty, fueled by adrenaline and pain, scrambled up. He didn't look back. He sprinted into the dense woods surrounding the cannery, disappearing into the dark brush. Shelby jumped out of the truck. "Get him," she screamed at Dale. "He's getting away." Dale was paralyzed, staring at the smashed cars. "You almost hit me," he yelled back. "I missed you, you idiot. Go get him." Shelby ran to the edge of the woods, shining her flashlight into the trees. "Rusty! You can't run forever. We know where you live." Silence answered her. Just the sound of wind in the pines. She kicked the dirt in frustration, letting out a primal scream of rage. She turned back to Dale, her face twisted. "He's gone," she hissed. "And he still has the card." He dropped something," Dale said, pointing to the ground near the impact site. Lying in the dirt was a phone. A cheap, cracked smartphone. Rusty's burner. Shelby snatched it up. It was locked. "Does this have the video?" Dale asked. "No," Shelby said, examining it. "He said he had a card. But maybe there's a backup. Or texts." She shoved the phone into her pocket. "We have to go," she said. "The noise. Someone will call the cops. My car is wrecked." Dale cried, looking at the Lexus. "Leave it. Report it stolen tomorrow morning," Shelby commanded. "Get in the truck." As they drove away, leaving the scene of their second failed murder, the dynamic in the cab was suffocating. Dale huddled against the door, looking at Shelby with a new emotion. It wasn't love. It wasn't lust. It was pure terror. He realized then that if she needed to, she would run him over just as easily as she had tried to run over Rusty. He was in the cage with a tiger, and he had run out of meat to feed her. They retreated to the condo, the air thick with the smell of fear and burnt rubber. Shelby poured herself a massive glass of vodka. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of violence. Dale sat at the kitchen island, staring at her. He looked broken. "We have to leave," Dale whispered. "We have to take the cash we have and run. Mexico. Or Panama. And live like fugitives?" Shelby scoffed, slamming her glass down. "No. We stick to the plan. Rusty is hurt. He's scared. He won't go to the cops because he tried to blackmail us. That's a crime too. He has proof we killed Lorraine." Dale shouted. "He doesn't care about a blackmail charge if he can get us on murder." "He doesn't have the proof if we find him first," Shelby said, her eyes narrowing. "I'll hire someone. A professional this time. Not you." "A professional?" Dale laughed bitterly. "With what money? And why would I trust you? You almost killed me tonight, Shelby." "I was saving us," she yelled. "I am doing everything for this family. For our future. For the baby." She put her hand on her stomach, playing the card that had worked so well before. "Think about your son, Dale. Do you want him to be born in a prison hospital?" Dale looked at her hand on her flat stomach. He looked at her face, beautiful, desperate, and utterly deceitful. Something inside him snapped. The wall of denial he had built for years crumbled under the weight of tonight's violence. He started to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then grew into a loud, wheezing, hysterical cackle. Shelby stepped back. "What? What is so funny?" "The baby," Dale gasped, wiping tears from his eyes. "Our son." "Yes," she said, confused. "Our son." Dale stood up. The fear in his eyes was replaced by a cold, hard rage. "Shelby," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I had the mumps when I was 20. Complicated mumps." "So?" she frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" "It caused orchitis," he said, enjoying the confusion on her face. "I've been sterile for 38 years. My doctor confirmed it. 0 sperm count. Shooting blanks. Why do you think Lorraine and I never had kids? It wasn't because we were too busy. It was because I couldn't." Shelby's face went white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "I never told anyone," Dale continued, stepping closer to her. "Not even Lorraine really knew the medical specifics, she just thought we were unlucky. I was too ashamed. But I know for a fact that there is no way in hell that baby is mine." The silence in the room was deafening. The ticking clock on the wall sounded like a bomb counting down. "So," Dale roared, slamming his fist on the counter, making Shelby jump. "Whose bastard are you trying to pin on me? The pool boy? The trainer? Or just some random guy from a bar?" Shelby backed up against the fridge. Her mask of the loving, carrying mother dissolved. Her eyes grew hard and mean. "Does it matter?" she spat. "You wanted a legacy, Dale. I gave you one. I gave you a reason to feel like a man for once in your pathetic life." "You whore," Dale hissed. "You manipulated me into killing my wife, for a lie." "I didn't manipulate you," Shelby screamed back. "You wanted her dead. You hated her. You hated that she was smarter than you, richer than you, better than you. I just gave you the permission to do what you were too cowardly to do alone. I loved her." Dale cried, the lie sounding hollow even to him. "You loved her money." Shelby laughed cruelly. "And now, we're stuck together. You can't leave me, Dale. Because if I go down, I take you with me. I'll tell the cops you planned it all. I'll tell them you forced me. Who are they going to believe? The pregnant young girl or the greedy husband?" Dale stared at her. He realized she was right. He was trapped. He had destroyed his life, killed the only person who had ever truly cared for him, all for a woman who despised him. He sank to the floor, putting his head in his hands, and wept. Not for Lorraine, but for himself. Shelby watched him with disgust. She took a sip of her vodka. "Stop crying," she commanded. "We need to find Rusty. Get up." But the alliance was broken. They were no longer partners. They were two scorpions in a bottle, waiting to sting each other to death. While the scorpions fought, Garrett and I were hunting. We found Rusty just before dawn. He hadn't gone far. He was holed up in an abandoned hunting blind about 3 miles from the cannery, nursing a dislocated shoulder and a bloody gash on his head. Garrett tracked him like he tracked deer, quietly, patiently. When we approached the blind, Rusty tried to run, but he was too weak. Garrett blocked the exit, his sheer size enough to make Rusty slump back down. "Don't hurt me," Rusty wheezed, clutching his arm. "I don't have the money. They tried to kill me." I stepped out from behind Garrett. I pulled down the hood of my oversized coat. "Hello, Rusty," I said. Rusty's eyes bugged out. He looked from me to Garrett, then back to me. He made the sign of the cross. Ghost, he whispered. Not yet, I said. Though your friends certainly tried. I sat down on a crate opposite him. I know you have the video, Rusty. And I know you tried to sell it to the people who pushed me. That was a bad business decision. I needed the cash, he muttered, looking down. I didn't know they were crazy. They are murderers, I said sharply. And now they know you're alive. Do you think they'll stop? Shelby will burn down these woods to find you. Rusty shivered. He knew it was true. Here is the deal, I said, my voice all business steel. You give me the memory card. You testify in court to what you saw. In exchange, I hire the best criminal defense attorney in Seattle for you. You'll get immunity for the blackmail attempt because you're turning state's witness for a homicide investigation. And I paused. When this is over, there will be a reward. A legal reward. Enough to get you out of that trailer and into a fresh start. Maybe Alaska. Somewhere they can't find you. Rusty looked at me. He saw the bruises on my face that matched his own. He saw a woman who wasn't asking for a favor but offering a lifeline. He reached into his dirty boot. He pulled out a small, black SD card. It's on here, he said, handing it to me. I filmed it in 4K. You can see their faces clear as day. I took the card. It was tiny, light as a feather. But it held the weight of my justice. Thank you, Rusty, I said. I plugged it into Garrett's tablet right there in the woods. We watched the file. It was undeniable. The angle was from above and slightly to the side. You could see Dale grabbing my arm. You could see Shelby pushing my back. You could see me fall. You could even see them high-five afterwards. A high-five. I stared at the screen, tears of rage drying instantly into cold resolve. A high-five. That was what my life was worth to them. A moment of celebration. We have them, Garrett said, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. Not yet, I said, pocketing the card. Proof isn't enough. I want a confession. I want them to think they've won, and then I want to rip it away from them. How? Rusty asked. The will, I said. The lawyer is scheduled to read the will and transfer the deed to the estate on Friday. Dale thinks he's inheriting an empire. I stood up, dusting off my pants. I'm going to crash my own funeral reception. We took Rusty to a safe motel in the next town over. Garrett paid cash for the room. I called my lawyer, Mr. Henderson, on a burner phone. Mr. Henderson was an old friend of my father's. When he heard my voice, he wept. It took 10 minutes to convince him I wasn't a prank caller. Lorraine, he gasped. My God. I'll call the police chief immediately. No, I ordered. Call the chief, but tell him to be quiet. I want the police at the house on Friday. Hidden. I want Dale to sign the papers. I want him to commit fraud on top of murder. I want there to be absolutely no way he ever sees daylight again. And Shelby? Henderson asked. Make sure she's there, I said. Tell Dale that Shelby needs to be present as a beneficiary or witness. Bait the trap. I hung up. I looked at Garrett. I need a haircut, I said, touching my long, matted hair. And I need a suit. A white suit. Why white? Garrett asked. Because, I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Ghosts usually wear white. Friday morning arrived with a sky the color of slate. At my estate in Bellevue, the mood was tense. Dale had been drinking since 8 a.m. Shelby was frantically packing boxes of my jewelry and designer clothes, labeling them donate but intending to keep them. They were arguing again. Stop drinking, Shelby hissed. The lawyer will be here in an hour. You need to look sober and grieving. I need a drink to sign those papers, Dale muttered, his hands shaking. I feel like she's watching me. She's fish food, Dale, Shelby snapped. Get over it. Once you sign the deed transfer and the life insurance claim, we are rich. We can leave this house. We can go anywhere. She adjusted her dress. She was wearing black again, playing the role of the supportive relative. But her eyes were greedy, darting around the room, calculating the value of the paintings on the walls. Meanwhile, 3 blocks away, inside a tinted SUV, I waited. I looked different. My hair was chopped into a sharp, angled bob. My bruises were covered with makeup, but I had left the hollowness in my cheeks. I wore a crisp white suit that looked like armor. Garrett sat beside me in the driver's seat. He was wearing a suit I had bought him, uncomfortable but imposing. You ready? He asked. I've been ready for 30 years, I said. I just didn't know it. Mr. Henderson's car pulled into the driveway. Following him were 2 unmarked police cars. They parked down the street, waiting for the signal. Inside the house, Mr. Henderson set up his briefcase on the dining room table. He looked pale but composed. Thank you for coming, Dale said, trying to sound authoritative. Let's get this over with. It's been a hard week. Indeed, Henderson said, laying out the documents. This is the transfer of the primary residence. This is the liquidation of the stock options. And this is the affidavit for the life insurance policy, stating that the death was accidental. Dale picked up the pen. Shelby stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, squeezing tight. Sign it, she whispered. Dale hesitated. His hand hovered over the paper. Is there a problem, Mr. Blake? Henderson asked. No, Dale said. Just missing her. He pressed the pen to the paper. He signed his name. Dale Blake. Then Shelby signed as the witness. Excellent, Henderson said, closing the folder. That concludes the paperwork. However, there is one final clause in Lorraine's living will that we must address. The resurrection clause. Dale frowned. The what? I've never heard of that. It's a rare legal stipulation, Henderson said, checking his watch. It states that all assets are frozen in the event that the deceased objects. Objects? Shelby laughed nervously. She's dead. How can she object? Henderson looked toward the double doors of the dining room. I believe, he said softly, she would like to do it in person. At that moment, Garrett kicked the doors open. They slammed against the walls with a thunderous crack. And I walked in. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens when a bomb drops but hasn't exploded yet. Dale dropped his pen. It clattered onto the mahogany table, sounding like a gunshot. His face drained of all color, turning a sickly shade of gray. He slumped back in his chair, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a hook. Shelby let out a strangled shriek. She stumbled back, knocking over a crystal vase. It shattered, but she didn't even look at it. Her eyes were locked on me, wide with terror. Lorraine? Dale whispered, his voice barely audible. Ghost? I didn't stop walking until I was at the head of the table. I placed my hands on the wood, leaning forward. I looked alive. I looked furious. I looked powerful. No, Dale, I said, my voice steady and cold as the ocean floor. I'm not a ghost. I'm your wife. The one you pushed off a boat. The one you left to drown. But, we saw you fall, Shelby stammered, shaking her head violently. You fell. You sank. I swam, I corrected her, staring daggers into her. And then I crawled. And then I survived. Sorry to disappoint you, honey. I know how much you wanted my pearls. Shelby's hand flew to her neck, clutching the stolen necklace. She looked for an exit, her eyes darting to the patio doors. Don't bother, I said. The house is surrounded. Dale stood up, his legs wobbling. Lorraine, wait. Wait! It wasn't what it looked like. I can explain. It was an accident. We were trying to catch you. Catch me? I laughed, a harsh sound. I have the texts, Dale. Just the deep blue sea. Remember that one? Or how about make sure she takes the pills? Dale froze. And, I continued, pointing a finger at Shelby, I know about the baby. Or should I say, the baby that isn't Dale's because he's been sterile since the 80s. Shelby gasped. Dale looked at Shelby, hate warring with fear in his eyes. You knew? Shelby whispered. I knew everything, I lied. I just wanted to see how far you two would go. And you went all the way. Lorraine, please, Dale fell to his knees, crawling toward me. He grabbed the hem of my white pants. She made me do it. Shelby. She twisted my mind. She said she was pregnant. I love you, Lorraine. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked down at him. The man I had shared my life with. He looked pathetic. A worm. I kicked his hand away. Get off me. And you, I turned to Shelby. I fed you. I clothed you. I loved you. And you repaid me by sleeping with my husband and trying to murder me. Shelby straightened up. The fear was replaced by a sudden, vicious anger. If she was going down, she was going to burn it all. You deserved it, she screamed, spit flying from her mouth. You self-righteous bitch. You dangled your money over us like a carrot. You made us beg. You think you're a saint? You're just a controlling old witch. Maybe, I said calmly. But I'm a living witch. And you're a soon-to-be inmate. I nodded to Mr. Henderson. He pressed a button on a remote. A large screen descended from the ceiling, the one Dale had installed for Super Bowl parties. I have one last thing to show you, I said. Before the police come in. CTA break, if you have listened this far, please hit the like button and comment the number 1 below. It lets me know that you are amazing, and I know you are with me on this journey. Your support is a huge encouragement to me. Please comment 1 so I can recognize you, and now, let's hear the rest of my story. Rusty says hello, I said. On the screen, the video began to play. The video was crystal clear. The angle from the drone was perfect. It showed the 3 of us on the deck. It showed the sunset. It showed the moment Dale grabbed my arms to pin me. It showed Shelby rushing forward, placing her hands on my back, and shoving with all her might. It showed me tumbling over the rail. And then, the moment that sealed their fate. The video showed Dale and Shelby leaning over the rail, watching me fall. It showed Shelby laughing. It showed them embracing and high-fiving. In the dining room, the only sound was the hum of the projector. Dale was staring at the screen, mouth agape. He hadn't known about the high five. Or maybe he had blocked it out. Seeing it now, in 4K resolution, stripped away any lie he could tell himself about it being an accident or a moment of madness. It was cold-blooded celebration. You high-fived? Dale whispered, looking at the screen, then at Shelby. We high-fived? Shut up. Shelby hissed. We killed her and we high-fived. Dale started to hyperventilate. We're monsters. You're a monster. Shelby screamed. She lunged at him. You couldn't even check if she was dead. You said she sank. You useless, impotent old fool. She started clawing at his face. Dale, snapping under the pressure, fought back. He shoved her into the sideboard. Enough! Garrett's voice boomed. He stepped forward and pulled them apart easily, holding them by their collars like misbehaving puppies. Police! The doors burst open. 6 officers in tactical gear swarmed the room. Dale Blake, Shelby Miller. Hands behind your backs. Now! Shelby tried to run toward the kitchen, but an officer tackled her. She screamed, a feral, ugly sound, kicking and biting. Get off me! Do you know who I am? I'm pregnant. You can't touch me. You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud. The officer read her rights as he clamped the cuffs on her wrists. Dale didn't fight. He collapsed onto the floor, weeping. He held his hands out willingly. I'm sorry, he kept blubbering. I'm sorry, Lorraine. I stood over him. Save it for the jury, Dale, I said. They dragged them out. I watched as they were led through the front door, past the neighbors who had gathered to watch the commotion. The cameras from the news crews, the ones Dale had invited for his announcement, were now filming his arrest. Shelby was still screaming obscenities as they shoved her into the cruiser. Dale looked like a dead man walking. When the sirens faded, the house was quiet. Mr. Henderson exhaled a long breath. Well, that was dramatic. It was necessary, I said. I felt a wave of exhaustion hit me, my legs trembling. Garrett was there instantly, offering his arm. You okay? He asked softly. No, I said honestly. But I will be. I looked around the house. The grand furniture, the art, the memories. It all felt tainted. Mr. Henderson, I said. Start the divorce proceedings. And list the house. I don't want to spend another night here. Where will you go? Henderson asked. I looked at Garrett. I think, I said, I'd like to go see the ocean. From the shore this time. The trial was the media event of the year in Seattle. The miracle wife, they called me. I sat in the front row every day, wearing my white suit. I wanted them to see me. I wanted them to look at the woman they tried to erase. Dale's defense was pathetic. He tried to plead insanity. He tried to claim Shelby coerced him with witchcraft, yes, really. But the video, the texts, and the financial records were damning. Shelby turned on him completely. She testified that Dale was the mastermind, that he was abusive, that she was a victim of grooming. It didn't work. The prosecution brought up her history of theft, the fake pregnancy, and her texts calling me an old hag. Rusty testified. He was cleaned up, wearing a cheap suit I had bought him. He told the truth. He pointed at them and said, they looked happy when she fell. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty. On all counts. The sentencing hearing was the final nail. The judge, a stern woman who had no patience for betrayal, looked over her glasses at them. Dale Blake, she said. You betrayed the sacred vow of marriage for greed. You are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Dale slumped onto the table, sobbing. Shelby Miller, the judge continued. You bit the hand that fed you. Your malice is chilling. You are sentenced to life in prison plus 20 years for conspiracy. Shelby didn't cry. She stared at me with pure hate. As the bailiff led her away, she mouthed one word, bitch. I just smiled and waved. After the sentencing, I was allowed a brief moment with Dale in the holding cell. I needed closure. He was sitting on a metal bench, still in his suit, but he looked stripped of everything. Lorraine, he whispered. Why did you come? I placed a document on the table. Divorce papers. Sign them. It's the last thing you'll ever do for me. He picked up the pen with shaking hands. I did love you once. No, Dale, I said softly. You loved how I made you feel safe. But you never loved me enough to let me shine without resenting it. He signed. And Dale? I added as I turned to leave. I cancelled the crypto account. And the villa in Italy? I bought it. For myself. I walked out of the courthouse and into the sunlight. The air smelled of rain and coffee, the smell of Seattle. But for the first time in years, it smelled like freedom. It has been a year since the trial. I sold Lorraine's living. It was my baby, but it was time to let it go. I sold it to a collective of my employees, financing the loan myself so they could own the fruits of their labor. I sold the Bellevue estate. I donated every piece of designer clothing, every piece of jewelry, except my grandmother's pearls, which I had cleaned and restrung, and every reminder of my old life. I used the money to start a new foundation, the Second Chance Shelter. We provide housing, legal aid, and job training for women escaping domestic abuse and financial control. I spend my days helping women spot the red flags I ignored. I teach them about financial independence. I teach them that no is a complete sentence. As for me, I live in a small cottage on the coast, not far from Cape Disappointment. It has a wood stove and a view of the lighthouse. And I'm not alone. Garrett is here. We aren't married. We don't need papers to define what we are. He teaches me how to fish. I teach him how to use an iPad, though he still hates it. We sit on the porch in the evenings, watching the waves crash against the rocks. The ocean used to terrify me. Now, I respect it. It reminds me that life is wild, unpredictable, and powerful. Just like me. Yesterday, I received a letter from prison. It was from Dale. He wanted money for the commissary. I didn't burn it. I didn't get angry. I simply put it in the recycling bin along with the junk mail. He is part of a past that doesn't exist anymore. I walked down to the dock where Garrett was fixing his boat. Hey, he called out, shielding his eyes from the sun. You okay? I'm better than okay, I said, climbing aboard. I'm free. Karma didn't just strike back at Dale and Shelby. It struck back for me, too. It washed away the weak, blind woman I was and forged someone new in the cold fires of the Pacific. So, to all of you listening, watch who you trust. Keep your own bank accounts. And if life pushes you overboard, kick. Kick hard. And swim toward the light. Because the best revenge isn't death. It's living a life so beautiful that they can't even imagine it from inside their cells. Thank you for listening to my story. Stay safe, stay strong, and never let anyone dim your light. As the waves of Lorraine's journey finally settle, we are left with a profound reflection on the resilience of the human spirit. Her story is not just one of survival, but of transformation, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to reclaim our lives and rebuild from the ashes. Lorraine's courage teaches us that self-worth is not defined by others' opinions or actions, but by the strength we find within ourselves to stand tall, even when the world tries to tear us down. This tale also serves as a powerful lesson in vigilance and trust. It urges us to protect our boundaries, safeguard our independence, and recognize the red flags in relationships that threaten our peace. Lorraine's victory wasn't just over betrayal, it was a triumph of integrity, proof that justice and truth prevail when we refuse to let adversity define us. What about you? What does Lorraine's story inspire in your own life? Share your thoughts below or comment good if you believe this lesson is worth remembering. Let's celebrate the strength we all carry within us, and never forget, the best revenge is living a life full of purpose and joy.